Thank you so much for coming. My name is Johanna Sanders, and I'm the chair of Aleinu at Congregation Bates in Patora. We host topical, social, and cultural events focusing on LGBTQ people in their 20s and 30s. And we are so excited to kick off our 2015 discussion series, Architects of the LGBTQ Movement. See how excited we are? Starting tonight, we listen as our heroes, trailblazers, and advocates recount the genesis of the modern movement and also deliver a challenge for us to envision what LGBTQ identity and activism will mean in the future. Aleinu in Hebrew means it's up to us. And so we take on that challenge as the next generation of activists finding our place in this movement. Tonight, our topic is art as activism. Gilbert Baker, the creator of the rainbow flag, will give a presentation followed by a Q&A, and then we will begin our tours, highlighting the carefully preserved murals and installations around the center by our docent, Heather Chapman. Coming up on Wednesday, March 25th, we will continue our series with activist, author, and attorney Urvashi Vad and our own senior rabbi, Sharon Kleinbaum, on the topic of diversity, race, gender, and civil disobedience. On Thursday, May 14th, we have former and current center executive directors Richard Burns and Glenda Testone on the topic of the LGBTQ Community Centers movement, state, city, and federal advocacy. The following three topics will be legal advocacy, impact litigation, caring for our youth, and envisioning the future of LGBTQ affirming media. Information about those speakers and dates will be announced soon. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Gilbert Baker, who created the rainbow flag, the internationally recognized symbol of LGBTQ pride. Gilbert taught himself how to sew in the early 1970s after being honorably discharged from the U.S. Army. He was living in San Francisco at the start of the gay liberation movement, and at the request of his friend Harvey Milk, the first openly gay elected official in California, made countless banners for gay and anti-war protest marches. The first rainbow flags debuted on June 25th, 1978 for the San Francisco Gay Freedom Day Parade. Since then, Gilbert has designed flags for presidents, kings, the Democratic National Convention, and many others. In 1994, Gilbert created a mile-long flag for the 25th anniversary of the Stonewall riots here in New York City, and broke the record for the world's largest flag. In 2003, he broke his own record with a flag that stretched from sea to sea, from the Gulf of Mexico to the Atlantic Ocean in the Key West. Gilbert Baker is an extraordinary artist, activist, vexillographer, and person. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Gilbert Baker.
Thank you, Johanna, for that. And thanks for inviting me to this series. It's very cool to be the first one. It made me nervous. It made me get off my ass and actually do something together. And I want to thank my roommate and computer jockey and guru, RJ, for the slideshows that he's been having. I'm happy with that one. And I want to recognize so many people in this group, but I'll just say thanks, RJ, thanks, Johanna, and my good Nation, my good friend Richard. So here we are at the Gay Center. And I never in my entire life ever dreamed there'd be such a thing as a Gay Center when I was a kid. You know, back in the day, I'm old. I was a ballerina, you're going to see pictures, I was so beautiful. But now I'm an old grizzly bear. But back in the day, they used to say, as a code, are you a friend of Dorothy? It was kind of a reference on The Wizard of Oz to find out, are you a friend of Dorothy? You might be gay. And people find out from Kansas and was born there. And they say, oh, you must be a friend of Dorothy. And I say, I am Dorothy. So I was, like I said, I was born in Kansas in 1951. I had a very typical 1950s childhood, you know, getting our first black and white television. I remember watching it, seeing the Democratic Convention in 1956 when they nominated our beloved President Eisenhower from Kansas to be president.
Not at the Democratic Convention.
No, the Republican Convention. And being in Kansas, there aren't that many Democrats, certainly not in my family in 1956, I'll tell you that. But anyway, it stuck with me, the spectacle of it, the stadium, the flags, the pageantry, the bands. It was, you know, it was a show. And I really loved it. And it turned me on in a kind of artistic way. And then the very few weeks later came the other most amazing thing I ever saw in my life on television, which was Miss America. Yeah, for sure, Miss America. Forgetting her first name, Meriwether. Anyway, she comes rolling down the Atlantic City runway in this beautiful ball gown. I was like 6, 7 years old. Changed my life entirely. From that moment, I wanted to be Miss America and I wanted to be president. So I spent my early years in a terrible family situation, quite frankly. My parents were hardly supportive of my artistic ambitions. It was one thing to be a hairdresser or a design and interior decorator, and all of those were kind of homosexual activities. And everything I wanted to do was associated with it. I wanted to be a factory somewhere. You know, I want to make movies. No, you should be a doctor. Or a lawyer, as my father was. So I had a very unpleasant suburban childhood, white childhood, very segregated. It was a Freudian nightmare. Parents, my friends, the atomic bomb going off, the assassination of Kennedy, and the lonely years of being different. I love my dog. I love my dog Bruiser. And I like to dance, and I like to play the trumpet, and I like to dress up, and I like to draw. But all of those things were my escape because I was really afraid of what was going to happen to me because I was gay. And I had to lie to live in a world where being gay was illegal and you could be locked up and electroshocked. And I had to lie to everyone all the time, trying to get through another day of insults, punches on the playing fields of teenage cruelty, and it made me really sick, very depressed. And my parents took me to see a psychiatrist when I was in junior high school because they thought, you know, God, I wonder if he might be homosexual. A latent homosexual, but nothing latent about it. I was born gay and I always knew it. And so I had to invent my own therapy as an alternative to suicide, and that therapy was art. And it's interesting that we're having this series on architects of the gay movement. On a lot of levels, I missed the boat being an architect. I love to draw, and a lot of my work comes from drawings and some of my paintings, you'll see. But in my childhood, I took mechanical drawing, and I drew palaces and houses and buildings and designed towns, and you name it. I loved it. And my parents were so not just not supportive, they were mean about it. And at certain times my father would get mad, they'd find me dressing up in my mother's cocktail dresses, and they'd march me into the living room, tear up all your drawings, right now, tear them up. And I'd have to tear up all my beautiful drawings, you know, it was horrible. So my childhood was typical of a lot of childhoods. And I just wanted to escape. I wanted to die. And I would say around the time I was 11 or 12, that was when I really began to think that I was, number one, born in the wrong body, that I should have been born a woman and then everything would be okay with attraction to men, and that that wasn't going to happen. Who knew how things would progress to today? It could have, but it wasn't going to happen. And I had to escape because that kind of depression, that kind of suicidal urge, it scars you for life. And once you're there as a child, you'll never get over it. I share this with many, many, many people. But I had to get over it, or I would have done it. And how I did that was reading books reading magazines, seeing movies, escape any way I could into some other world, into some other existence, imagining myself as some other person. And pursuing music and art, because in the moment of making art, it's a big high, it's a big escape, it's a release. So I bided my time as a teenager, couldn't wait to get out of Kansas. And it was the 60s. It was full on, Beatles, Rolling Stones, Acid Revolution, and all of it was all over the front pages. And in 1969, when I graduated from high school, was the Stonewall riot. And here I am, a senior in high school, and I'm opening up my little Chanute, Kansas hometown paper, reading about homosexuals on the rampage in Greenwich Village. And I thought, oh my God, I'm not alone. Changed my life. But I was still in Kansas, and I didn't know what to do, so I thought, well, I'll go to college, I'll be a lawyer, or a doctor, college, you know, was the thing young, affluent white people did. So I went to college and flunked right out because I couldn't stop masturbating and I couldn't stop fantasizing about all the things I wanted to do and go and be that weren't part of college. And of course, comes the summons from the United States military, you are hereby drafted. And on my 19th birthday, I was drafted into the US Army, Private Gilbert, you'll see some pictures, they're hysterical. And so I got drafted. That was a mind blower, to put it mildly. I grew up watching the Vietnam War in the 60s thinking, oh, it's really terrible. There had been a couple of moratoriums at Kansas University, you know, and we knew there was a big anti-war movement. Certainly there was a big topic of discussion at dinner in my family's house. I was not particularly thinking it was a good thing to have a war. My parents on another plane. But I got drafted. Right away, I realized this is not for me. And yeah. First of all, here I am on the bus going to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and I'm terrified. And I get there, and right away, you're getting a gun and a bag, and they load you down with all this stuff. It's 100 degrees. We're standing in formation out in front of the barracks. 10,000 people are lined up. We're all going to die. And I stood there thinking about all of it and the overwhelmingness of it and just passed right out. Fell right to the floor, passed out, cold as a dog. And when I woke up, I had the drill sergeant shoving real amyl nitrate under my necklace. Wake up, you know, and calling me a fag in front of 10,000 people. And from that moment on, my life was hell in the Army, because I was the one that they would always pick out to be the fag, to be the queer, to be the example. Until Gilbert can hit the target with his gun, everyone will do push-ups. Oh yeah, that's what it was like. I couldn't shoot shit. I can hardly see now. So anyway, it was not good. And finally, I just said, you know what? If I stay in the Army, and people were mean. They were violent. I would go to bed at night worried that I was going to get beat up. They'd be talking. My Army buddies would be talking about this. Let's get Gilbert. You know, they'd have blanket parties where they punch you and do things like that. I had to get out. So one day I just realized if I stay in the Army, I'm going to die. They're going to kill me, or I'm going to die in Vietnam, and I can't shoot the gun. I don't want to kill people. This is not for me. And so I went to the sergeant in charge. I said, I want to get out as a conscientious objector. I'd read about that book. Well, I conscientiously object to this, and I don't fit here. Well, that was everything. Because the next day, he was like, well, you have to think about that. That's very complicated. No. You'll have to get your parents' approval, which was never going to happen. Excuse me. And the next day, I didn't pick up my gun. We were going off to a big march, a bivouac. Thousands of people marching through the dusty Missouri countryside to have a bivouac and shoot our guns on the range and do the whole sort of simulated Vietnam thing. And in the morning when we assembled, you go to the arsenal and you get a gun, you get an M16, and I just decided not to pick up my gun. Okay, no, I'm not going to do this. So we get in our formation, you're just one little person in a row of 4 and a thing of 10. And so we got about 10 miles out in the country before somebody even noticed I didn't even have a gun. Can I have some water? I'm sorry.
Yeah, right here.
Thank you. Yeah, we got about 10, thank you. So anyway, we got about 10 miles out there. No gun. Stopped everything. The whole thing, like 10,000 people, all ground to a halt. Baker, where's your gun? I'm not going to carry that gun anymore. And they're like, nothing. What? No, I'm just, no. No, I'm a conscientious objector, and I want to get out of the Army. This is not for me. I think it's wrong. I thought they were going to kill me right on the spot. So, everyone will do push-ups until the commanding officer comes to take care of Gilbert. So 10,000 people lay down the road, push-ups, oh, you're not ready to murder me. Here comes the commanding officer of the day, his little Jeep, flags, and rolls right up, gets the story from the drill sergeant, comes right up to me, shoves me down into the dirt, and says, I could kill you right now if we were in Vietnam because you're a traitor. And I was like, and he was very, very rude and violent. And I was like, well, maybe they are going to kill me. But they didn't. And instead, they decided to get me out of there, to get me out of the formation. And I was moved immediately back to the main base, thinking, great, I am going to get out of here. But no such luck. Then the next day, just as I'm thinking, I'm going to be able to get out of this mess, comes the base commander saying, well, your parents are here and they don't approve and they want to either have you stay in the Army or they want to send you to a mental institution. Those were my choices. So I was like, oh, isn't there some other thing? So fortunately, the sergeant of the day or whatever he was like, he ran the sort of business of the thing. He said, well, you know, maybe you want to be a medic. You know, the Geneva Convention, you don't have to carry a gun in the Vietnam War. You can be a medic. How would that be? And then you're out of my hair, and you finish basic training. See you. You don't have to carry a gun. You don't have to worry about getting, you know, electroshock therapy from your parents. So I said, well, okay, sure, that's fine. I'll be a medic. Thinking, oh, why not? You know, at least I won't have to kill people. I don't have to shoot the gun, which I could never do. And being a medic, you get assigned to be something in the Army. You get a job, and that's an okay job to do. So somehow I con one of my Army buddies into shooting at my target the night of the final rifle, test where they make you shoot to qualify. And I got my friend who's really good. I said, could you shoot over that way a little bit so I can get out of here? I shot at my target. And I was able to get on an airplane and get out of Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri alive. And then I went to San Antonio, Texas. San Antonio, Texas, Burns Hospital, a huge, giant burn center there. I'm saying it wrong, but it's a burn center for people. And it was a huge Army training facility for medics. Every medic in the U.S. Army got trained there. So we get there. It's a whole different environment. First of all, it's about people are sick, people are hurt, and we're going to be taking care of them in the field. And we watched horrible movies and training and all kinds of stuff. And all during the process of becoming a medic, which basically is like, here's a Band-Aid, and oh, by the way, you will want to carry a gun in Vietnam. They give you these tests. They test you to see where you fit. And I aced everything. So finally, as everybody's getting their orders for, guess where, Vietnam, I'm like the last person that doesn't have orders to go anywhere, and they marched me into the general's office saying, you know, you have the highest scores of everyone in the cycle. Would you be interested in being a nurse? And we would send you to school for that. And I said, sure. As opposed to going to Vietnam? Yes, I would like that. Would you like to be in Seattle, Washington, or San Francisco? And I went, I think I'll go to San Francisco for that training. Thank you very much. And that's how I ended up in San Francisco. I went there to become a nurse, and I did. I served. I got an honorable discharge. It was horrible. Not so much from the homophobia. First of all, I'm in San Francisco. It's just after the Summer of Love. It couldn't be more gay. I'm dragging my army buddies down to see the Cockettes at midnight, acid for everybody. And it couldn't be more different. But at the same time, what we were doing was horrible. It's an orthopedic center, and it was basically the place where bone grafting and facial reconstruction and all these horrible, horrible injuries from Vietnam, these young guys our age were coming back just totally messed up. And I did that for the rest of the time that I was in the Army, thinking, maybe I'll be a doctor or something. I was pretty good at it. I thought, it's not a bad life. So I thought, well, yeah, I could do that. But I really hated being in the Army. It was just still really homophobic, and I was still really gay. I was still pushing the buttons. I was taking acid on the side, and having a love affair with somebody in the barracks, and it was a little complicated. So then another miracle happened. And there I am in the barracks one day when it came on the news that the Weather Underground had blown up the St. Louis Army Record Depot, where they kept all the records of all the people in the Army. And I went, wait a minute. My records are in that depot. My records are gone. All this contract about me going to school and blah, blah, I had to give them 2 extra years, all that, goodbye. So I thought, gee, I wonder. And sure enough, just a few days later, Gilbert, could you come over to the commanding officer's office? We need you to sign some stuff. We need you to get some, papers that we don't have in order. So I went in, and sure enough, they didn't have anything together. And I said, yeah, let me think about that for a minute. And I somehow got out of the office, left the base, ran over to see my friend Dow, who's a wonderful doctor. I was friends with a civilian doctor. And I said, they've lost my records, and they want me to sign again. And my dad's a judge. I knew without a contract, there's no contract. I said, so what do you think? He said, go down to there was a beginnings of a Vietnam Veterans Against the War organization. So I went down there to see if I could get some help, and they were great guys. And they said, don't sign, you're going to get out, you're a draftee, they have to let you out after 2 years, and you're going to early out because you're so gay. We're giving you right away. And so for the last couple of months of the Army, I was every day, get your ass in here and sign these papers now, or you're going to be on the next plane to Vietnam. And I'm like, I'm not signing nothing. You can send me to Vietnam, and you just wasted $80,000 on my education. I can serve a couple more months at the hospital, working in the ER, or you can send me to Vietnam and kiss it all goodbye. And somehow, some way, they never did. And even as I was going through the Oakland Army base, where you process out of the Army thousands of people, it's incredible. They calling names over the loudspeaker, so-and-so report to this, and I thought, please don't call my name, please don't call my name, please don't. Because I was so worried they were going to find that, this papers. So finally I'm handing in my ID, getting my pay, giving them a false address, because I'm going to stay in San Francisco. And I got out of the Army. And when I did, I realized I was really kind of free for the first time of my life, and staying in San Francisco seemed like a good alternative than going back to Kansas. I thought, this is much better for me here. And but I didn't have a job. I had to figure out some way to live. So I got the GI Bill. I thought, well, I'll go to college and pursue a degree in medicine. Why not? Go to college. I did really well. I tutored calculus. Who knew? I think it was all the acid turned on my math. So anyway, I went there, but I had friends, civilian friends out in the world in 1972 we're talking about. I met up with this woman, Mary Dunn. She's this big old Oregon Earth Mother, and she just lived across from the campus. And we knew each other because we were big potheads. And we worked on the very first legalization of marijuana initiative, Proposition 19, in 1972. And between the two of us, we registered 8,000 people. We were really good. And we made friends with people in the pot movement. And it was the McGovern year. And so every day I'd meet up with Mary, and we'd have lunch and smoke some joints. And then we'd look at Vogue magazine, and we look at fashion, and we fantasize, God, what if we went to Halston, or Yves Saint Laurent, you know? We just love clothes. And she knew how to sew. And I thought, I would like to know how to sew. And so she got a singer for me, and sat me down and gave me some very rudimentary lessons, and my life changed. I realized, I can do this, I can do this. And immediately, I was like showing up to math class in like pink satin cape. Oh, I had clothes for days. And I would always be sewing something for school. It was kind of a joke after a while. I would never put pockets in anything because they took extra time. extra. So I got fairly good at it, 72, 73, 74 in there. I got good enough that I realized, you know, maybe I'm not a doctor. Maybe I'm something else. So I thought, well, maybe I could do fashion or something like that. So I thought, well, I should take some classes. So I went over to City College in the summer and enrolled in the sewing and tailoring class, which is kind of like an offshoot of what would have been the old home economics department back in high school, right? So I show up, I'm the only guy, And right away, the instructor hated me. I'm too gay, what are you doing in here? And you know, this is for, you know, and our class, okay, we're all gonna make a gray flannel blazer. And I'm like, I kind of want to wear this tapestry jumpsuit to the Rolling Stones. So, but I learned enough to know that I wasn't going to be a fashion designer. First of all, I began to feel like if I wanted to be a fashion designer, I was in the wrong town. I should go to New York or Paris. But I was in the right town at the right moment for gay rights. Because during the last part of my stay in the Army, I began to, like I said, I had friends in Vietnam, veterans against the war, and there were some big marches, and I started thinking about banners and how important those events really are. So I gravitated immediately after getting out of the Army to the gay scene in San Francisco, which was very fledgling, 73, 74. And we were beginning to have gay protests. We'd seen Stonewall, and every year there would be the gay parade that would happen in June to commemorate. It would be like 500 people on Folsom Street a block long. It was ridiculous. Now it's 500,000. But as that began to grow, I thought, this is really cool. This is a movement. This is something worthy of my energy, that I should not just do it, but I should really do it. So I met Harvey Milk around the same time, 74, 75, somewhere in the mid-70s. I had friends, and they said, you gotta meet this crazy hippie, Harvey Milk. He's running for office. He had a ponytail, and he was totally nuts. And never got elected. But I met him, and I liked him, and he had a camera store. And what I liked about Harvey right off was he was an artist, and had that sensibility and appreciation. And the other thing about him was he had this kind of charisma, I guess, if you want to call it, where people like me were drawn to him to be part of something. And within short order, we began working on the Coalition for Human Rights. And our first big thing was in the summer of 1977. There were a string of gay murders that happened in San Francisco. Robert Hillsborough was a friend of mine. And I was outraged by that. And I thought, we have to turn our Gay Pride Parade into Gay Freedom Day Parade, excuse me, into something really important and really big. And so, in my finest gold platform high heels and my little beaded sweater, I went down to City College president and said, I would like to have an art workshop in the cafeteria of one of your community colleges where people can come and make signs. And we can make our parade more visual. And they were stunned and said, okay, sure, why not? Let's do it. So I got a community college. And then I had a friend, Tandy Ballou, rest his soul, and we went around, got art materials donated from everywhere, and put out the word. And we had hundreds of people come and make signs and banners and everything for the 1977 Pride Parade, or Gay Parade. And it was huge. It looked huge. For the first time, there were hundreds of thousands of people marching. Not a few thousand, hundreds of thousands. And it wasn't just the drag queens from Pole Street. It was lots and lots of different kinds of people. And that really got me thinking. I had just witnessed the incredible hype of the bicentennial in 1976, the year before, where I did start noticing the American flag being used on everything from, paintings to tacky souvenirs, and the way that flags translate themselves into everything. And I made a flag for 1977, big purple flag, gay power, white letters, huge. But I wasn't really satisfied with that. But I liked the idea of the flag because when people saw it, it was up in the air. It was very, it was very uplifting. So as 78 rolled around, I thought, well, we should have a flag. We should have something like that. And I talked to Harvey about it. He wanted a logo. No, well, flags. We should have a logo. See, like AT&T and this and all. Everybody have a little graphic gizmo there. Put them on right? Graphic. We need a logo. Yeah, we had a logo. We had the pink triangle. It was put on us by the Nazis, by Hitler in particular, as this way to identify us, like to identify Jews in the Holocaust. So the whole origin of the pink triangle, which was widely used by the mid-70s as a symbol for gay rights, really had this terrible beginning. It was imbued with murder. It was like, this is not, it's okay, I get it, but it's not from our soul, it's not from us. It's not beautiful, it doesn't have that sexy power, which I thought we should have. And so, as I began to think about making a flag, I thought the rainbow was immediately obvious to me. This is not brain surgery. Because it fits us. That's an important part of flags, is that it fits the people. As I say, flags are torn from the soul of the people, and even though I'm getting all the credit and accolades for making this, it belongs to everybody. And the reason is because everybody has their own idea about what it is, and everybody owns it. They own it themselves. And so the rainbow really fit the idea that we're all the colors, we're all the ages, we're all the sexes. And so I decided, I'm going to make a rainbow flag for the Gay Freedom Day Parade 1978. So I marched myself into the parade committee, and I said, I need $1,000. That's a lot of money. And I'm going to buy fabric and dye, and we're going to do it at the Gay Center, and I'm going to make flags. So I called with all my friends, and we had big tubs of dye everywhere. It's just a giant mess. And 1,000 yards of cotton. It was beautiful. You see pictures of it. And as it got closer and closer and closer to it, I wasn't really sure people would really even get that it was a flag. So I made two. I made one with a jack of stars, like the American flag, tie-dye, of course. But thinking, well, people at least get that. Maybe they'll get the other pure rainbow, as I call it, as a flag. And then, of course, I made it at the Gay Center. I could have sewed it at my house, but a flag has to have a birthplace. It has to have certain elements to it. And it was really lucky and appropriate that we made it at the Gay Center in San Francisco, the top floor gallery, And people came and were participating in it. My friend James was head of media that year and was a big part of it. And I have a huge debt to my friend Ferry, who was the tie-dye queen of San Francisco, and I had her come and help me figure out how to dye 1,000 yards of fabric. And my friend James, who knew how to sew as well as I did, and, people. And we had big parties, okay. You want to dye 1,000 yards of fabric with special natural dye, 1978, organic, big trash can, fill it full of water. You put in the dye, you swish it around, and then you put in the fat with salt. It's a salt water process. It's salt water, lots of salt, tons and tons, boxes and boxes of salt water. Then you put in the fabric and you swish it around for a few days. You look like an axe murderer, it stains everything. And then you set it with ash. You put ash in the mixture and it sets the saltwater dye. And then you have all this tubs and tubs and tubs full of very wet, soggy, dyed fabric. We had to go fix it. So, when you go to a laundromat that says no dyeing allowed? Yeah. Yes, well, dragged a couple of laundromats, drag bags of wet laundry into their, we'd wait till nobody was around, drag them, wash it, try to rinse it out, rinse it out, rinse it out. It was quite funny. But on the morning of June 25th, we took those flags over to the United Nations Plaza, which is kind of a ceremonial entrance into the Civic Center of San Francisco. And that is there to commemorate the birthplace of the United Nations. So again, I have 2 100-foot flagpoles, so it really fit the birthplace of the rainbow flag was going to happen, you know, on the meridian. It's gorgeous. And then the parade was going to go right through between them as it processed up to the Civic Center. So it was really thrilling. We got there very early in the morning, and they have these internal halyards, which is how you raise a flag. And we started raising them up, and pretty quick, they weren't even a third of the way up, and the wind just blasted them right out of our hand. We couldn't even control it. It was like, oh my God. And up they go, and I'm standing there with, you know, Cleve and my friend Tom and a bunch of us are standing there going, oh my God, this is astonishing. This is incredible. And everyone around owned it. Everybody got it, just like that. It was instant. I couldn't believe it. That's our flag. So it's life-changing. I knew my life would never be the same after that. I thought, and I'm probably on acid and cocaine, God knows. But I knew enough to know that this would probably be the most important thing I ever did in my life at that moment. And just seeing the reaction of first my friends and then people that I didn't know, and then as the day progressed, Harvey and my friends, it was like, oh my God, that's our flag. So it was really exciting. And then, you got to make me one. People coming right up to me, Gilbert, please make me one. I was like, oh, sure. And I thought, wow. And within a few days, I had tons of orders. Like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, I can't do this. I have to get help. So I thought, I'll go to the flag company. I'll get them to help me. So I went down to Paramount Flag Company, South Market, marched myself in there in my LeMay jeans and my pink hair, punk rock, darling. And this is the gay flag. We should do it. And they looked at me like, you're out of your fucking mind. Gay flag? We had the American flag here, right? They made California flags. And they, gay flag. But fortunately, they were in San Francisco, so they were aware that there are those hundreds of thousands of people that are gay. Maybe some of them would do something. So I got invited into the owner's office, Mr. Tudor, who basically ran the whole company as a big money loser. There was no money in flags, and his passion for collecting all kinds of memorabilia and employing people. And he sized me up and said, well, yes, we're going to do this with you, but you're never going to get rich. Right off the bat, 1970, I guess in that summer. You're never gonna, no royalties on flags. You want to make a flag, they're all public domain. There will never be a royalty. I went, oh, sure. I wasn't really thinking about that as time went past. I didn't very good about that. But I was like, yeah, whatever, you know, let's just see if it goes anywhere. He said, well, we're going to risk 5,000 little rainbow flags. And they did. They made 5,000 little stick flags like this big. That's 5,000. We'll see how they go. So we had a street fair. I think it was the Castro Street Fair. And we set up a little stand, a little cardboard table, and lots of flags. Sold out in 2 hours, just like that. So I was a big hero at the flag company. So I went back and said, well, why don't we think about making them in the standard flag size, 3x5? And we did. We made them, and of course I insisted that they be made in cotton, nylon, 8 colors. And then we did that for a couple of months. And then I got called in and, you know, we can't do it. We're losing money and we're going to have to figure this out. I said, what do you mean? So first of all, there isn't any more pink fabric. And I said, what are you talking about? Since there is no more pink fabric for flags. And I went, oh my God. exhausted the entire supply of cotton bunting. Bunting is the fabric flags are made from. That's what it's traditionally called. And there's a very limited palette of colors in flags, about 20. Pink, not one of them. So he said, well, what about if we didn't use pink? And I was, no. It stands for sex. This is the gay flag. And then it's not even. Okay, well then we'll take out turquoise. So I made a compromise. It was going to be, was I just going to make a few flags, or was I really going to do this? And to do that, I had to get flag manufacturers interested in it as a commercial thing. So we have the commercial version that we see everywhere now, with 6 colors. But the 8 colors was always my favorite because there was a lot of thought put into it. You know, pink was for sex, red was for life, orange was for healing, yellow was for the sun, green for nature, turquoise for magic, blue for serenity, and purple for the spirit. So they all had meanings, like every flag should have meaning. And there were 8 colors as a magic number in Chinese mythology. And in genetics, it turns out, guess what? There are actually 8 sexes in every one of our human cells. The XY thing, you know, that pairs out, there are 8 in every cell. We're all different, but that's what it is, so I love that. But I did have to make the compromise, and I wasn't really sure if people would be okay with it, because like I said, I was taking out sex and magic right off the bat. But people did, because I think people understood it was about the rainbow, it was about the spectrum, it was about all the colors, it was about the idea that we're all the colors, and that resonated deeper than any kind of, you know, protocol. In the beginning, I made 2 flags. One to have the red on top and one to have the purple on top. As I say, we're a versatile people. And I never wanted to be bogged down with all the kind of protocol and crazy flag rules that there are around the American flag. I never wanted to be bothered with those. Instead, I wanted to be kind of the anti-flag. You know, it's from nature. It wasn't about nationalism. So I began to get manufacturing going, first at Paramount and then at Aleinu, which is the giant of all flag industry people over in New Jersey, got them interested. And slowly but surely, the rainbow flag started appearing here and there in San Francisco. My dear friend Richard brought it to New York in like 80-something early. And it began to show up in you know, Los Angeles and at gay pride parades. And what I watched happen was we would have our gay pride parades, and it sort of became the theme. It was like red, white, and blue for the 4th of July. We have the rainbow for gay pride. It sort of was the answer to the pink triangle finally. And I began to see it in, you know, costumes and marching bands. I started seeing it on the names of organizations. It was like, oh my God, this is really happening. I decided, well, I have to get this recognized by the flag industry as the gay flag. It's not just the rainbow flag, it's the symbol of the gay movement. And so I started being involved in the North American Vexillographers Association. Vexillography is the word for flag makers. And I would go to their annual meetings when they had them. They were quite a trip. You know, from Arkansas, Texas, and you know, gay, what? And it took me 9 years. It took me 9 years. All those in favor? No. All those in favor? Not this year either. And I realized I have to be taken more seriously as an artist, as a vexillographer, if you will, to get the rainbow flag its place in the flag world. And so I started by designing Dianne Feinstein's inauguration as mayor. I just on a whim knew she was going to be inaugurated. It would be a fabulously, you know, ceremonial event. She's a rich lady, and you know, it would be full of, you know, pomp and circumstance, just my kind of thing. And I whipped up a fabulous drawing of the rotunda of City Hall with her in the middle, sent it over to my friend Charlotte Meyer, who's a socialite. And they called me up. Dianne called me up saying, you know, I really like this. Can we do this? I said, sure. And so with the resources of Paramount behind me, I did her inauguration, blew their socks off. I think I used 5,000 tassels. Still have some. hired all my gay friends who were so gay. And huge installation, wonderful work. And she hired me again. The next thing was I did the premiere of China. She was hosting international visitors. Her husband had a business interest in China. And was beginning to host heads of state who would come to San Francisco on their, junkets, State Department junkets. Diane would be more than thrilling to roll out the caviar and champagne. So I did the premiere of China for her. It was incredible. I did the President of France, Mitterrand. I did a number of things for her. The King of Spain. And I got wind in her office one day. By then I was like, oh, the cute little gay boy. He was like the hairdresser, the flag guy, And I got wind in her office one day that the Democratic Convention might be coming to San Francisco. And I went, that's a flag affair. Remembering back how much I loved conventions. And so I apprised Paramount this could be really good for us. And spent a whole winter in the basement of Paramount making 50 incredibly beautiful watercolor renderings of Moscone Center, state flags and American flags. And the day that the Democratic Convention Committee opened their offices, headed by none other than Nancy Pelosi, by the way, I was the first person in the door. I'm like, yeah, convention, we should have flags. And they're like, a little premature here, it's a year away. But I persisted. I wanted to do that very much. I cut my hair. I did everything I possibly could to get that photograph. I toned it down as much as I could. Of course, Diane wasn't happy that I was still running around with my friends and sisters on perpetual indulgence, having the Red Party at the Russian Center, and making all kinds of waves against the Catholic Church, which I did brilliantly. And but somehow she had the courage, really, to finally give me the contract to do it, and I did a spectacular job for the Democratic Convention. And I remember Nancy and Roz Wyman, the big honcho of the convention, I finally summoned. I think, oh, it's not going to happen, not going to happen. 3 weeks before I get the call, come on down. I walk in and they said, well, we're going to give you $25,000 and we just want it wispy. And that was it. It was wispy and spending $1. That gave me the credibility to go back to the Flag Association people and say, rainbow flag, it's a good thing. Gay movement is here to stay. This is the symbol of the lesbian gay movement. And finally, they went, oh yeah, those pink dollars? All in favor? Yes. They saw that it was a viable commercial product, and I don't think it had anything to do with embracing gay rights at all. But I finally had that behind me, and through that, I got into the international scene, where it wasn't just being produced in the US, it was being produced all over the world, slowly but surely, slowly but surely. So after I'd done the Democratic Convention, I spent a few years in San Francisco doing society parties and the black and white wall, and every now and then I get to do something really great, a birthday party for these like Perlman, something really gorgeous. But I never made money. I did rock and roll, I did all the Jefferson Airplane stages out in the park, Burfordville ran, rock is horribly homophobic. I never made any money. And I kind of thought, I'm starting at the top. I'm in the right town for gay rights, but I'm in the wrong town to be an artist. So that sort of began my exit from San Francisco when I finally came to that conclusion. And then you also have to remember that I'd seen my good friend Harvey Milk killed. I'd seen half of my friends die. And San Francisco wasn't so pretty. It was really kind of, on a lot of levels, very depressing. So I hit upon that I should do something for Stonewall 25 here in New York, that would be the next big gay occasion. I had skipped the March on Washington in '93. And I was sitting there in my living room watching all these hundreds of thousands of people waving rainbow flags on the mall. I went, golly, it really is big. And I should do something for Stonewall. I was kicking myself I wasn't part of the '93 March. So I I called up my good friend Cleve, and I said, you know, I'm thinking of doing something for Stonewall, and we hung out on the Russian River for the spring, you know, having fabulous meals, dreaming up, you know, incredible scenarios of what we could do. And I thought, well, you know, the way to really make a mark is to have a world record. That I should make a world record flag. That would, you know, everybody would respect that, even if they didn't like me or the gay flag or anything. So I came up with that I would make the mile-long flag for Stonewall 25, and with Lee's help, I was able to get $250,000 out of the Statlander Pharmacy, which was just the tip of the iceberg. And they wanted it to be about AIDS. They really came to hate me because it was, yes, we're going to raise money for people with AIDS, and we're going to do good work, and you know, your pharmacy is wonderful, providing drugs or whatever. But this is the rainbow flag. It's the symbol of the gay movement, and Stonewall is a celebration of the gay rights. Yeah, AIDS, sure, but this is about this. And they could never really reconcile themselves, so that I just taken them for the biggest ride ever. But it was an amazing event because I had the resources that I needed to make something beautiful. I'd never been to New York. I got off the airplane ready to sew and basically walked into, you know, the gay center the first time I met Ann Northrup to act up. She says, oh, that flag kind of smarmy. It does not have the soaring emotionalism of the Statue of Liberty. And I'm like, here you are. Remember? And, anyway, but I persisted, and Richard showed up one day at my little workshop over on 16th Street with an apple brown bag in the middle of winter, and became my right hand, or my left hand, as you will. And we made it. It's a lot of Imagineering, as I call it, a lot of math, a lot of engineering, a lot of organization. Almost 10,000 people were involved in doing it. Dealing with the Stonewall 25 committee, which was insane. It was like a congress of people from all over the world, or the US, and everybody had a vote. And they were over at the Law Center, and I'm there with my flag project trying to get, you know, my 5,000 volunteers to show up at 10 o'clock that morning. And they're having to vote. All those in favor of transsexual, no, put down. It did happen. And they were not included officially in the '94 march. And so there were all those politics. And then, of course, I was in New York, and I had come from San Francisco, where, you know, the police were my friend, the mayor hired me to do parties. Rudolph Giuliani. Big eye-opener, and it was quite complicated. You know, I wanted to do it on Fifth Avenue. There was no way they were ever going to let that happen in front of the cathedral. I did have enough wherewithal to have alternatives. First Avenue, I resisted, but I ended up having to do it. We were in federal court right up to the day of the event, saying, we're going to be on Fifth Avenue with or without your permit. And we lost. You know, no, you can't be on Fifth Avenue. Well, you know, next morning, guess what? We were on Fifth Avenue. And I was able to take some pieces from First Avenue over to Fifth Avenue, and all ended up in Central Park, and it was a great, wonderful day. For me, it was a triumph because I had actually made the world's largest flag. And it was pretty thrilling, I'll tell you. I had it all planned out the night before about how I was going to get it over to Fifth Avenue, and I was sitting in the place, okay, I have to cut it. It has to be the world record for that moment. It has to be the thing. But then I have to cut it and then get pieces over to Fifth Avenue. And I thought, well, if somebody just dives into that rainbow flag with a pair of scissors, people go crazy. And I thought, no. If I go into the rainbow flag with a pair of scissors wearing my silver Versace gown, everybody goes, it's just Gilbert, right? So sure enough, I was standing right in front of the United Nations, like 42nd, 43rd, right in front, and waited until I could see both ends of the flag, and just for a moment savored it, and then right through the flag, and right through the flag every 50 feet. Running through the flag, cutting it wildly. Statlander's freaking out. Oh my God, what is he doing? I'm handing chunks of flag off to Richard. Take this to Fifth Avenue. People would take them over to Fifth Avenue. seeing friends from London, take this to London, take this to Tokyo, take it to Cuba, and just handing pieces out to people. It was really, actually, really thrilling. So after '94, that's when the flag really became international. Those pieces went all over the world, or too many countries all over the world, but to important places. And they showed up at their gay pride parades and their events, and it really began to be an international symbol of our movement. And that was kind of the moment that I realized this is bigger than me. That I don't need to be a doctor, I don't need to be a lawyer, I don't need to be a fashion designer, I have the most amazing career in front of me to work on the rainbow flag. It's a life's work. And so it was a big choice for me to move to New York. I spent a few years back and forth working on political things in California, slowly getting my New Yorkness. I finally found an apartment, and I made the change. Because, like I said, I realized that if I was really going to be taken seriously as an artist working on an international project, that I needed to be in New York. So I had a good life. It was wonderful, but I need to do more. I can't just retire at 40. You know, I have to do something else. So I thought, well, the only thing left to do now is top myself. So in 2003, I thought, well, I'll make another big flag. It was sort of in my head, the 25th anniversary of the rainbow flag. And I thought we should do something beautiful for it. That had exhibits. And it was at a conference when these people from Key West came up and said, we'd like to talk to you about maybe doing a big flag in Key West. It could go from the Atlantic Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. And I went, that's big enough. And that was a complicated project. Having done it, I knew the technical part of it was doable, but the political part of it and the sponsoring part of it was complicated. And I at first thought, well, I'll take it to Budweiser. Budweiser was the first sponsors for gay pride parades, corporate, and had their all over every gay pride. I think they still sponsor more gay prides than the 50s, all big money. And I thought, well, I'll take it to them. Plus, they are the world's largest advertiser and have those kinds of budgets. And I thought, well, this will fit them really well. But on a whim, I thought, well, I'll try it out with Absolute Vodka and see how that is. And so I met Scott Seitz, who runs their marketing here, and just on a whim pitched it. And 15 minutes later, I had a check in my hand. He was like, oh my God, we're doing it in Key West. They didn't want to do it in Key West. They were very nervous about doing it in the South. They were very nervous about doing it in Florida because at that time, 2003, we were not in good shape there. There were a bunch of anti-abortion, anti-adoption, in bad shape in Florida. Plus, it's a small market. They're like, yeah, we want to do this, but let's do it in LA, where there are millions of people, or let's do it, you know, in a big market. I'm like, no, you're not going to get that C2C magic. And there's something really cool happening in America where, yeah, we're all focused on these big communities and all the pink dollars going on, you know, Minneapolis and Chicago and Boston and Miami. But what's really happening is small town America is turning on to the gay movement. I was very happy to take it to Key West because it really represented that moment, I think, when, at least for me, the movement really went into our country and it was really going to be something that was going to change America for sure. So I did. I taught myself. I made another world record. It was quite wonderful. I made absolute millions of dollars. I took it to Sweden as a thank you. I thought, well, I'll finally get a little travel, so I thought, well, I'll take it to Sweden. And I didn't take all of it. I took maybe 1,000 feet of it or something. And it was a life-changing moment because I went to Sweden. I was, you know, Gilbert, international drag queen superstar, rainbow flag. And they were going to have hundreds of thousands of people come and see this. Very cool, Sweden, what a wonderful, beautiful country. And the day of the big event, you know, we're unfurling the quarter-mile-long flag in front of the Royal Palace. It's incredible. It's beautiful. People went crazy. And as we passed the Royal Palace, the police came running up to me, and they said, are you all right? I said, oh yeah, I'm fine. So we have some trouble going on here. I said, what are you talking about? They said, we just want to make sure you're okay. So we got over to where the celebration, and what I found out was there had been so much publicity for the rainbow flag and this big gay thing that, if you know Stockholm, the palace sits on an island, it's sort of up on a hill. As the flag passed, most of the parade behind it, up on that hillside were hundreds of neo-Nazi skinheads. And as the flag passed, they ran into the parade street, whatever it was called, and picked out one of my volunteers, beat him to a bloody pulp and broke his jaw right in front of thousands of horrified spectators. And everybody that ran into the street got beat up. To stop it, everybody got beat up. It was a total act of terror against gay people. And I stood there in Stockholm, Sweden, which I thought was like the most cool, progressive possible place in the world, going, oh my fucking God, we have a big, big problem. And I had seen the Nazi gay bashing thing. We were in Rome in 2004, that, and I had seen that kind of up close, the fascist thing there. And of course dealing with the Catholic Church and all that crazy stuff. So, but I wasn't really aware of how political the rainbow flag was, how much people really hated it in places that I never dreamed. And then I began to see it show up in gay demonstrations in Russia and all over Eastern Europe. I saw it in South America, and I was like, people are really using this to express themselves, to proclaim their power. And that's what flags really are, it's about proclaiming power. So that really did change my vision of what the flag is. I mean, for me, it was always this incredible art thing, and on a lot of levels it still is. But it means a lot to people because it's their way of taking power, it's their way of expressing themselves, it's their way of saying, this is who I am. You know, they put it on their shirt or bumper sticker or whatever, and they're saying, this is who I am. And you know, when you see it, it's kind of like the Red Cross. It's like a safe thing. You know, that's a cool business or a cool house. So I realized this is going to go far, far, far beyond me. This is out of my control. It is a complete, wonderful, total phenomenon. And I'm really grateful that that happened because it is wondrous. And it inspired me to go back to the fine art of making paintings and movies and beautiful sewn flags, if you will, and to really not get crazy in the commercialization that's on everything. Okay, 1987. I just get everything through the International Flag Conference. Yay, finally, after all these years, it's the international symbol of gay rights by every flag maker in the world. And Mr. Tudor said, you know, I'm selling the company, I gotta go, I'm 85 years old, my days are done. Sold the company, liquidated the inventory, and all flag manufacturing went to, hello, China. China and Taiwan, Indonesia, and within short order, between 87 and with NAFTA in particular, Clinton, the whole garment industry, textiles, soft, everything, gone. And so then all these beautiful things that I had made and worked so hard to do, it's like, well, how do I compete against China where they have slave labor in prison camps making rainbow flags that they're selling for $2 on, you know, eBay? I can't. How do I do that? So that's still a sticky situation. But the commercialization aside, it's still working because people still own it. That's the incredibly wild thing about the rainbow flags, that I don't have a patent, I should. And I did file for it. George Bush's father, George Sr., God bless him. Anyway, at one moment, I guess it must have been Barbara thinking some noblesse oblige, you know, we ought to make an exception for people that, you know, give artworks to museums, a tax credit. And that law had a loophole in it where I was able to file for the trademark, if you will, on the rainbow flag. And I did, and was turned down. And I was like, yeah, duh. But when I met with them, they said, yes, flags are, but if ever they're not, you will be first. Okay, well that's better than nothing, but still. So anyway, I did try. But now I see it used so many places in so many different ways, and it's you have no idea the kind of fulfillment that brings to me. So I guess that's probably enough. I'm dry. I'm sorry. I'm suffering from allergies and a cold, but I would be happy to take any of your questions. We have a new slideshow just for tonight. Thank you, RJ. And this is in honor of our takeover of America. Thank you very much. And actually, we worked on this. No, not this one. Oh, this is it. Yeah, we worked on this for a number of years. You'll see where we've taken. These are banners I made for March on Washington, 2009. Equal justice under the law. That's our motto on the Supreme Court. One of our more fabulous banners. But what I did was, there are so many variations on the rainbow flag over the years. I at one point decided with RJ's help to make every single rainbow flag I could ever think of. So here they are, the states. That is Alabama, which are created as an Alabama rainbow flag. And that is Alabama. They're protesting in front of their capital. And here comes Alaska. And here comes the Alaska flag. And the state flags are actually really boring. They're mostly like blue and sometimes teal, so it's not very, some of them are really fun. But as a way to sort of, push a boundary and make a little, we can see this is a wallpaper. So I'd be happy to take some questions. Yes?
Why wasn't the flag trademarkable?
Flags are in the public domain. If it's a flag, it's in the public domain. Flags, by definition, are public domain. If it's a banner or a logo, you can trademark some of those things, or advertisement. Flags, there's no trademark on the American flag or the New York flag or anything. And I wanted it to be a flag because flags are about power.
I actually think that the Olympic flag has a trademark.
Yes, well, they're a business. They do have.
But I want to ask you a question. The flag is a fun thing, but it's also a serious thing. Have you or anybody made like a serious documentary or
yes,
or a book about it?
Yeah, a book. In my dream someday. Banana has hers done. I've been working on my book for 15 years. It's going to be really good.
That's beautiful, Colorado. I swear.
My friend Mary Jo Ferran made a wonderful documentary called Rainbow Pride in 2003. That was really wonderful and very smart look at the rainbow flag. Another one called Key West City of Colors. I did a thing for another one called Beyond Gay out of Vancouver, which was a look at gay rights around the world, and PBS, and yeah. I worked on Mill, the movie. I made banners for Harvey, and then years later, I'm making banners for the movie about Harvey. And I got called in to make all the banners again, and it was so funny. I laughed with all my friends and said, "Oh, your banners were never this good when you were." And it was kind of an interesting story. It was fun. It was thrilling. It was a story that needed to be told, and has been told several ways. So, yes?
Well, one of the stories that I've heard or read over the years is that the reduction of the flag from 8 colors to 6 colors had to do not with your explanation, but rather that there were 6 lanes of traffic on Market Street, and they were planning to color each lane a different color, since there were only 6 lanes as opposed to 8 to have to go. Any truth to that?
No. Although I will tell you something that I like about that, and that relates to a phenomenon that just happened a couple of years ago. There was a rainbow crosswalk in Sydney, Australia, and it was quite beautiful. It was there, I think, for the gay games, right? They put it there, everybody loved it. Anyway, somehow, confusion, all of a sudden jackhammering it up, and gone. And people went crazy, what have you done? What have you done? What have you done? And so there began this sort of wonderful movement in Australia where they used chalk to chalk rainbows on sidewalks and streets, and you name it, to the point where they outlawed chalk. We have to have a law against this. It was wonderful, and it was everywhere in Australia. And that began lending itself to rainbow crosswalks in Los Angeles, and now there's one in San Francisco. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do all of Christopher Street as a rainbow. So yeah, try that one. So we'll see. But I do like the idea of using it as a kind of traffic furniture, if you will.
I'll get another game now.
Yes. Yes.
First of all, it's an honor to hear from you. It's to get to meet these people in person. First question, or two little questions.
Okay.
One is, so after the rainbow flag, and even before then slightly, there were other flags coming into use as well. Trans flag, leather.
That came later.
I know it came later.
Later.
I realize that. What I'm asking is, when you saw that this had taken on, did you, number one, think about going back and coining some of those as well, or do you let someone else do that consciously?
No, I never did, because the rainbow's enough to work on. And the first one that came around was the leather flag, and then there was a bear flag, and then the trans flag, and and all of those are important elements of our community, but for me they still all fit into the rainbow. So I didn't really feel the need to do that.
And then my second question was what your take is on this flag, or a variant of it, was being used. I see your bag behind you says peace on it, and there were many flags using the rainbow, not so much as a pride movement, but just as a peace.
No, very much. The Vietnam War, so many wars, I'm so confused. But the Iraq War, yes, I was in Key West sewing, and I think Mike Signorelli called me up saying, "You will not believe how gay it is in Milan. What are you talking about?" And he's like, "You won't believe it. It's rainbows with the word peace on it." And I went, "Oh, that's really cool." And then I started seeing pictures. And then I started getting calls saying, "You have to stop this immediately. How dare they? How dare they steal our flag?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You are the peace and love people. This is homage. This is wonderful." So yeah, I love that. Actually, I think it's wonderful.
But do you worry it'll ever confound the meaning that you set out?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you worry it'll ever confound?
No.
Okay.
No, and it only adds to it, in my estimation. Like I said, we are the peace and love people, so I'm proud of it, and I love myself. Yeah.
And in fact, what happens more often, I think, is that people see the peace flag and mistake it for the gay flag.
That's right.
That's
right. As I used to say, the gayest place in America is Toys R Us.
Did you run into any Rainbow Push Jesse Jackson?
Oh yes, Jesse Jackson, of course. 1984, working on the convention. I hadn't actually got the contract yet, but I knew I thought I was going to get it, but I was pushing. Anyway, Jackson is running for president for the first time now. And we had a club in San Francisco called Valencia Rose, kind of a comedy club. A lot of great people in Valeria and Martin Gomez, a lot of people came out there. Anyway, Jesse Jackson decided he was going to pay a visit to the gay community of San Francisco at Valencia Rose. So we organized this big thing where he was going to come and we were going to have this big event. And he rolls up in buses, and I'm there with Cleve, and I'm wearing some, American gown, and I have made a special rainbow flag. And so he gets off the thing, he comes in there. I'm like, San Francisco, gay royalty. And on behalf of our people, we love you so much. Here is our flag. And he looked at me like, "What are you talking about? Our flag, what is this?" And he walked right by me, and I was kind of crushed. I was standing there like, "What's that about?" But anyway, his mother was right behind him, and she took it, and she looked at the sewing, and she went, "Oh, this is really beautiful. I like this." Jesse's mother. So I didn't really think anything about it other than, well, because I got snubbed a little, but his mother liked it, okay, fine. So then at the convention, which, oh, by the way, Democratic Convention, 1984, Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein and Mondale, all those people, all those Democrats, they were so fucking worried about Jesse Jackson having a big demonstration in the hall, and taking over, that at the giant, huge super podium covered with Gilbert flags, there was actually a bomb chute where they could push the candidate into a slipper slide and into a special sandbag room when the terrible, horrible, black people stormed the convention. That's how paranoid they were. But anyway, I was at the convention, and sure enough, there's a rainbow flag at the Jackson demonstration, or whatever they call them there, I guess, the demonstration. And it's like the American flag. It has white stripes and the 7 colors of the rainbow and a jack of stars. So it's not like our flag. Again, it's a little derivative. But I was really honored that his mother had used that as an inspiration to take off, and it really fit the way they've used it with the American flag. Excuse me, better than my version, which is just a rainbow with a jack. And I think this is really great. But yeah, the thing about Jackson is I really liked him. And I worked on his campaign in 1988. I decided, there's a lot of good things this guy is saying, and maybe he doesn't really completely get the gay movement, but he gets it a lot more than Dukakis, and a lot more than George Sr. And so I'm very proud of the way, and I see that today, the way that the rainbow is used by people of color in every community, and it's wonderful, in every way. I see it in India, I see it in Jamaica, I see it everywhere. It's incredible. And okay, now there is one little wrinkle, and that's South America. I just got criticized the other day. I was in Stockholm, and when it first happened, and I was there, on top of the world. I got called up by what's in essence the Stockholm New York Times, and they said, "Well, you are certainly aware that there is a rainbow flag in use in Peru, in Ecuador." And I said, "Oh, of course, I know that. It's a native thing." And they said, "Well, how do you as a white man justify stealing the native traditions?" That was the first question to me. And it set me back, but it doesn't belong to us either. The rainbow belongs to everybody on this planet. So, yeah, we've made it our symbol because we've been very clever and smart and provocative and brave and courageous to push it. And it doesn't take anything away from what they're doing. But I do get that criticism from particularly from Star Wars flag. It's just one town. It's a different flag than what's mine.
And you want to talk about Stonewall 50 at all?
What do I want to say? I don't know yet. Stay tuned. I'm working on it. A lot of us in this room are working on it. But go ahead.
I was wondering if you were going to show us the pictures in uniform from. You said you were going to.
Roll the other slide.
And then
I'll take 2 more questions.
My question to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going on too long. Go ahead.
The question to you was.
Yeah, there's the picture.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Archie. Go ahead.
Have you come across any occasion where you didn't feel comfortable with having that flag was being used, or did you disapprove?
Maybe I have. It's so fleeting, the feeling. I probably have. I generally know. I think I was the first person to burn one. Actually, it was a fashion show, and it was right when flag burning was a big topic. I said, well, it's not even a real flag until it's been burned. I remember it was a tavern, last story. It was the Tavern Guild, which ran everything. The bar owners ran the whole gay movement for decades, ever. And they had a big Halloween ball every year, and it was all this big runway and a big fashion show. And I conspired with my friends, the Sisters of the Perpetual Indulgence, to be in it, and we created this fantastic pageant where we were all dressed up in the flags of all the Latin American countries. Death squads, we were like Miss Guatemala, Death Head. It was really gruesome, blew their minds. And at the end of the runway was always the bride, and I had one of my transgender sisters come down the runway wearing absolutely nothing except a little rainbow flag, and she whipped it out and lit it up right in front of her. Wonderful. And no one laughed harder. People were horrified. No one was laughing harder than me. I don't take it that seriously. One more. You're the last one.
Gilbert,
Brent.
since you've been such a close friend of Cleve Jones for so many years, I've often wondered, you know, how much you and your rainbow flag played a role in somehow inspiring Cleve. I mean, we've heard the story of how he got the idea for the quilt, but how the rainbow, you and the rainbow flag.
Who do you think he called up to start the first panel? Huh?
I bet.
No, Cleve is a great genius, and I didn't really get it at first, but I was happy to help him do that. It was wonderful. And that is the recreation. That's me. These are all me. And there he is. There's Cleve. This is the recreation of the milk camera store down to the very boxes of film. My friend Charlie Beale did a wonderful job for the movie. And this is also a recreation for the movie. So yeah, it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun to do. Yeah, but Cleve is a great innovator and a great thinker, and certainly I think the Names Project quilt certainly did an amazing thing in terms of it brought AIDS to the mainstream of America in a way that nothing had, in a way that people could not accept it, but could understand that there was a Holocaust going on. People really were sick, and it was affecting every family. So I really applaud you for doing that. It's an amazing thing. And then this movie would never have been made without Cleve. Cleve and I worked on that movie for 19 years. We were roommates several times, and early on, we rented our apartment out to Gus Van Zandt, and he came while we went to Europe, and when we came back, we found our whole apartment covered with cigarette butts and empty bourbon bottles. It was an unbelievable mess. And there was a script that he had written. And it was really good, but it didn't get made. But then, 19 years later, we got tapped to do it, so we have a passion for doing it. All right, thank you very much. I have a website, gilbertbaker.com. There's tons of stuff there. And Stonewall 50, stay tuned. We're starting to have meetings and get it going. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much all for coming. We have tours now of the center artwork and installations around the center. So we are all going to follow. Hi everybody.
Hi.
Great. If you want more information about Aleinu, talk to me or go on our website or just email me at aleinu@cbst.org. We would love for you to get involved with Aleinu, CBST, anything. Now let's go on our tour.